Welcome to The Explainer. The entire world is holding its breath for this one. The leaders of the US and Russia are about to meet. But listen, this is way more than just a handshake. It's a massive gamble happening on what used to be Russian soil, and the fate of a war is literally hanging in the balance.
Okay, so let's get right into it. This summit between President Trump and President Putin, it's just loaded with meaning, with huge implications for the war in Ukraine. But the first thing you've got to ask is, why there? Why pick a place with such a complicated past?
So the meeting is scheduled for August 15th, and the location itself, well, it tells you a huge part of the story. We're talking about Alaska, and that choice, it's anything but random. Now, to really get why this is such a big deal, you just have to look at the timeline. This will be Putin's first visit to the United States in a decade. But what's even crazier? The US hasn't hosted a formal summit like this with a Russian leader since 1988. I mean, we're talking the final days of the Cold War here. That huge gap really shows you how frosty things have been and why this meeting is so incredibly significant. You know, the choice of Alaska is actually a brilliant strategic move. Symbolically, it was once part of the Russian Empire, so it gives off this vibe of being neutral ground, far away from the political chaos of Washington, D.C. But there's also a really critical legal reason. Since the U.S. isn't a member of the International Criminal Court, it's a safe place for President Putin, who, as you know, has an ICC arrest warrant hanging over his head because of the war. So with the stage set so perfectly, what are they actually going to talk about? Well, the main event, the whole reason for this, is the potential for a peace deal in Ukraine. And this is where you can really see the two leaders coming at this from completely different angles. For Putin, just having the summit is a win. It puts him back on the world stage and gives him diplomatic legitimacy. For Trump, the focus is on a pretty controversial way to get to peace, this idea of territorial swaps between Russia and Ukraine. Yeah, that phrase right there, land swapping, it's what sent absolute shockwaves across the globe. It suggests that a peace deal could mean redrawing the map of Ukraine, and it's an idea that Kyiv has, for obvious reasons, flat out rejected, time and time again. So, as you can imagine, the news of this summit hasn't exactly been met with a round of applause from everyone. The world is really divided on this, with people watching with a mix of cautious hope and, well, some deep, deep concern. For the critics, the problem isn't the fact that they're talking, it's about who isn't at the table. By leaving Ukraine out of a conversation about its own future and by pushing European allies to the side, this summit is taking a huge risk. The fear is it could end up legitimizing Russia's invasion instead of actually solving anything. And this really gets us to the heart of the whole debate. On one side, you have the argument that, hey, this is a brutal war, any kind of dialogue is a step in the right direction, right? But on the other side, the question is, if you hold these talks without Ukraine, are you just sending a message that military aggression works, that it gets you a seat at the table? But not everyone sees this as such a dangerous move. For a completely different take, let's look at the reaction from India. They're a major global player, and they have strong relationships with both the West and Russia. India's entire approach to this is shaped by that one powerful statement. When they say this is not an era of war, they're signaling that they see the summit as a positive, that it's a necessary chance for diplomacy to have a shot, no matter how messy it might be. So India's position is basically one of pragmatic optimism. They're happy to see dialogue, they welcome a push for a ceasefire, but they're not naive. They totally get the risks of normalizing land grabs. But here's the crucial part of their take. Delhi is making it clear that for any peace deal to actually last, it has to eventually include everybody. That's a strong signal that Ukraine can't be ignored forever. And so that leaves all of us with the one massive question that sums up all the hopes and fears about this meeting. Is this summit going to build a bridge to peace? Or is it just going to redraw the map of conflict? The entire world will be watching on August 15th to see what happens. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.